presented by RTV Global Network. Imagine a 16-year-old kid standing at the top of his mark.
Okay, picture this.
He takes a deep breath, sprints in, and hurls a hard leather cricket ball at 134 kilometers per hour.
Which, I mean, if you've never faced a projectile moving that fast, it is essentially a blur.
Exactly. It requires this incredibly violent, perfectly synchronized explosion of human biomechanics.
Totally.
Now, I want you to imagine that exact same kid, just a few years later, dropping the tiny lever ball, picking up a 2.5-meter-long spear, and throwing it so far that it practically spans the entire length of a professional American football field.
It's wild. It just defies standard logic.
Right. Today we are unpacking a narrative that just completely breaks the mold. We're looking at the meteoric rise of a 23-year-old athlete who has, well, completely flipped the script on global track and field in 2026.
He really has.
Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to break down the mechanics, the psychology, and, the sheer stakes of an athletic evolution that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, it's a story that really forces us to reevaluate how we identify and cultivate human potential. Because when we look at elite athletic development, we generally expect this linear, highly predictable pathway.
Right, like starting in PV leagues and going straight up.
Exactly. But what we are examining today is a complete paradigm shift. It's this sudden rupture in the established order of the sport. We're looking at an athlete who totally bypassed the traditional global powerhouses of track and field and just emerged from a completely different athletic ecosystem.
Right. And to set the scene for you, the listener, we really have to talk about that ecosystem. We are talking about Sri Lanka. This is a nation that is historically, culturally, and, fundamentally obsessed with cricket.
Oh, absolutely. It's practically a religion there.
It is. It's a country known globally for producing some of the most elite, unorthodox, and just terrifyingly effective fast bowlers in the history of the sport. Like every kid growing up there wants to bowl the perfect Yorker or hit a century at the SSC ground in Colombo.
Yeah, that's the dream.
And yet, out of that exact same cricket-mad cultural soil springs one of the most powerful javelin throwers in human history.
Which is such a profound pivot. I mean, it is rare enough to reach the absolute pinnacle of any single global sport, right?
Definitely.
But to transition from a sport that has a massive established infrastructure in your home country to a specialized track and field event where your country has very little historical footprint, and then to dominate the world.
Yeah. It's almost unthinkable.
It requires a perfect storm. You need raw physical talent, immense psychological resilience, and honestly, a complete re-engineering of the body's mechanics.
The athlete at the center of this storm is Rumesh Tharanga Pathirage. And as we are going to explore today, this isn't just a sports story about a guy who throws a stick really far.
No, not at all.
It's a masterclass in applied physics and biomechanics. It's a story about the immense, crushing weight of national pride. And it's a really fascinating case study in the deliberate, agonizingly patient process of skill building. So let's establish the baseline here. Where exactly did Rumesh come from before the entire world knew his name? Because, he didn't just walk onto a tartan track and throw a javelin 92 meters on his first day.
Absolutely not. To truly understand how a human being generates the sheer devastating force required to launch an 800-gram spear over 92 meters, we have to first look at what that exact same right arm was originally trained to do.
Right.
So Rumesh hails from Kalutara, and he was educated at St. Peter's College in Colombo. But his original sporting roots, like the foundational bedrock of his athletic identity, were completely removed from track and field.
Right. They were deeply embedded in cricket.
Yes.
And he wasn't just playing casually in the streets, right? We were talking about highly competitive, formalized talent identification.
Precisely. So let's rewind to 2019. Rumesh is just 16 years old, and he enters the Airtel Fastest competition.
Which is a big deal over there.
Huge deal. For context, this is a major, highly publicized talent identification program in Sri Lanka, specifically designed to unearth the next generation of lethal fast bowlers.
Oh.
And at 16 years of age, Rumesh clocked a blistering delivery speed of 134 kilometers per hour.
That is insane.
Yeah. He actually finished second in the entire national competition, coming in just behind Ishan Malinga, who actually went on to become a Sri Lanka international player.
Let's just pause and unpack that speed for a second. 134 kilometers per hour at 16.
It's just wild.
If you've ever thrown a baseball from the deep outfield to home plate and felt your shoulder ache the next day, try to multiply that torque by 10.
Right.
To generate that kind of velocity, a teenager's body has to recruit an incredible amount of fast-twitch muscle fiber. It requires this highly tuned kinetic chain where the energy transfers perfectly from the feet, through the core, and out through the fingertips.
Exactly. I mean, the human shoulder just isn't naturally designed to move at those velocities while bearing a load.
Yeah, you'd think it would just snap.
The amount of force the rotator cuff and the elbow joint have to absorb and redirect is immense. Now, there was a latent athletic pedigree in his DNA. His father had a background in the discus and the shot put.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there was certainly some genetic predisposition for explosive power and, the mechanics of throwing heavy objects.
Right, you have the genes for it.
But the true turning point wasn't a genetic revelation. It was an observational one. A coach named Tony Prasanna saw something happening on that cricket pitch that transcended the sport of cricket.
Coach Prasanna is essentially the catalyst for this entire deep dive. What exactly did he see that made him suggest such a radical change?
Well, Coach Prasanna didn't just see a fast cricket ball, he saw the mechanical engine producing it.
Okay.
He noticed Rumesh's explosive arm speed and his athletic, rangy frame. Fast bowlers need to be incredibly pliable, but also capable of massive, sudden rigidity.
Right.
Prasanna essentially approached this young, highly successful cricket prodigy and convinced him to drop the leather ball, step away from the cricket pitch, and pick up the javelin.
Wait, I have to push back on this because it sounds almost absurd on paper.
It really does.
You have a 16-year-old kid who just proved he is one of the fastest bowlers in a country where cricket is basically a religion. Fast bowling has a clear, glamorous, highly lucrative, and culturally revered pathway in Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
Switching from that to international javelin feels a bit like a Major League Baseball pitcher suddenly deciding to become an NFL quarterback.
Right.
Sure, they both throw things hard, but the mechanics, the implement, the field of play, they are completely different. A cricket ball is 156 grams and fits in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
A javelin is almost 8 feet long and weighs 800 grams. It is unwieldy.
How does that translate? Doesn't the sheer length and weight of the spear completely change the biomechanics?
Well, that is the exact question sports scientists ask, and the answer lies in the biomechanical overlap, which is actually much tighter than your baseball to football analogy suggests.
Yeah. Yes, the implement is vastly different. Throwing a tiny spear versus an aerodynamic pole requires a completely different grip, release angle, and wrist action. But the engine, the kinetic chain that generates the horsepower, is remarkably similar.
Oh.
Both fast bowling and elite javelin throwing require massive rotational torque through the core. Both require the athlete to sprint to gather forward linear momentum and then suddenly violently plant a braced front leg to stop that momentum.
Wait, are you talking about the block leg?
Yes, the block leg is the absolute key to understanding elite throwing. To really picture this, think of a car going 60 miles an hour that suddenly hits a solid brick wall.
Okay, graphic, but I'm with you.
The car stops instantly, but any unbuckled passenger flies forward through the windshield at 60 miles an hour.
Right.
In javelin, the lower body is the car, the block leg is the brick wall, and the throwing arm is the passenger. Rumesh is intentionally causing a biomechanical car crash in his own body to whip his arm forward.
Wow. That is a phenomenal visual. So the run-up is just building the speed of the car, and the plant foot is the wall.
Exactly. In cricket, it is called the front foot delivery stride. In javelin, it is the block. You are taking all that forward linear momentum and you are slamming your front foot into the ground, locking out the knee completely.
And the energy has to go somewhere.
Right. The lower body stops dead, and all that kinetic energy has nowhere to go but up. It transfers violently through the hips, twisting the torso, snapping across the chest, and finally whipping out through the shoulder, the elbow, and the hand.
And he already had that down.
Exactly. Rumesh had already spent years perfecting this exact sequential firing of muscles on the cricket pitch. He already knew how to build the car and hit the wall.
So Coach Prasanna didn't have to teach him how to generate power. He just had to teach him how to apply that existing horsepower to a 2.5-meter spear.
Precisely. The engine was already built and tuned. They just needed to swap out the transmission so it could drive a different vehicle.
Makes total sense.
But we have to be clear. Transitioning that engine wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a movie montage where the music swells, he throws the spear a few times into the sunset, and suddenly he is a world champion.
Right. It never is.
Repurposing that kinetic chain for a much heavier, longer implement is a grueling, agonizingly slow process.
Which brings us to the architecture of a champion. We are moving from that raw, unrefined teenage talent we saw in 2019 to the highly scientific, grinding process of building a world-class athlete, centimeter by centimeter.
Yes.
Let's walk through this timeline, starting in 2022.
Right. So in 2022, Rumesh goes to the World Under-20 Championships in Cali, Colombia.
Okay.
This is his first real taste of global high-stakes competition against the best of his generation. He throws a personal best of 70.68 meters in the qualifiers.
Nice.
Then in the final, he throws 69.98 meters and finishes 7th overall.
Okay, finishing 7th in the world at the under-20 level is nothing to sneeze at. That is a massive achievement for a young athlete from a country without a massive throwing infrastructure.
For sure.
But let's be honest about the numbers. A 70-meter throw in the senior men's division isn't going to get you anywhere near a global podium.
Oh, it won't even get you out of the qualifying rounds at a senior world championship.
Right.
What that 70-meter throw in Cali showed was potential. It showed the engine was working, but it wasn't yet refined for the elite senior level. It takes years for the tendons, ligaments, and central nervous system to adapt to the specific demands of throwing an 800-gram javelin at maximum velocity without tearing yourself apart.
Yeah, the injury risk must be huge. So we fast forward 2 years to 2024. He competes in the Asian Throwing Championships in South Korea, and he wins with a throw of 85.45 meters.
Yeah.
That is a 15-meter jump from his under-20 days. That feels like a massive sudden breakthrough.
It was a massive breakthrough, and it definitively signaled that Sri Lanka had a genuine continental contender on their hands. I mean, an 85-meter throw makes the entire global throwing community pay attention.
Oh, yeah?
But, and this is the most crucial part of analyzing his development, he only crossed the 80-meter barrier one single time that entire 2024 season.
Wait, just once?
Just once.
I see. So he had established a very high ceiling with that 85.45-meter throw, but his floor was still relatively low.
Exactly.
He could hit the big, spectacular throw occasionally if all the stars aligned and the wind was right, but he couldn't summon that elite distance on demand week after week.
That is the exact struggle of the developing elite thrower. In Javelin, consistency is arguably far more valuable than a single anomalous peak.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If your timing is off by 100th of a second on the block, or if your release angle is 2 degrees too high, an 85-meter throw instantly becomes a 74-meter throw.
Wow.
You cannot survive on the Diamond League circuit if your performance variance is 10 meters from one week to the next.
Which brings us to the 2025 season. Looking at the data, 2025 appears to be the true structural turning point of his entire career.
It was. It was the year the narrative of inconsistency completely evaporated. In 2025, Rumesh entered 11 major competitions.
Okay.
And in all 11 of those competitions, he crossed the 80-meter mark.
Every single one.
Every single one. He didn't just do it once. He became a machine. He won bronze at the inaugural Neeraj Chopra Classic in India, where he stood on the podium alongside Olympic champion Neeraj Chopra and former world champion Julius Yago.
That's a lead company.
Seriously. Furthermore, he became the very first Sri Lankan javelin thrower to ever reach a world championship final, finishing 7th in Tokyo.
To go from crossing 80 meters once in an entire year to doing it in every single competition across the globe in different time zones, different climates, and different stadiums, that requires a fundamental rewiring of both technique and psychology.
Oh, without a doubt.
How do you raise your floor that
So
dramatically?
you have to break the throw down to its absolute microscopic components. When you listen to Rumesh and his coaching team talk about this period, it is fascinating. It wasn't about seeking one massive lucky throw. It wasn't about staring at the magic 90-meter mark and trying to swing for the fences. It was entirely about raising the absolute floor of his baseline performance.
Okay.
They focused obsessively on the basics. The angle of the foot strike, the runway speed, the recovery of the central nervous system.
There's the fundamentals.
Exactly. They knew that if they managed the physical load perfectly and refined the block leg so it was identical every single time, the distance would come automatically as a byproduct of sound, repeatable mechanics.
I want to dig into the psychological side of this because this is where the story gets incredibly profound.
Yeah.
When asked about this grueling progression, Rumesh had this quote that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "When I improve by 1 centimeter, my nation moves forward by 1 centimeter."
It is a staggering amount of perspective for a young man.
It really is. I mean, think about it. You are 22, 23 years old. You are standing at the end of a runway in Tokyo or India. You aren't just holding a fiberglass javelin. You are holding the sporting pride of 22 million people who haven't had a global track and field superstar in generations.
It's heavy.
How does that immense national weight impact a young athlete's psychology? I would think that kind of pressure would just crush you.
For many athletes, it absolutely does. That kind of national expectation can become a psychological straitjacket. It causes athletes to tense up.
Right.
And in javelin, tension is your absolute worst enemy.
Because it ruins the fluidity.
Exactly. If your muscles are tense, you destroy the fluidity of the kinetic whip. You end up trying to muscle the throw with your upper body rather than letting the energy flow freely from the ground up. But for Rumesh, this national pressure seems to act as an anchor rather than a weight.
How so?
By breaking the monumental abstract task of lifting a nation down to a single microscopic tangible metric 1 centimeter, he makes the impossible manageable.
Oh, I see.
He isn't walking out onto the track trying to change the world all at once. He is just trying to be 1 centimeter better today than he was yesterday. If his elbow is a fraction higher, if his sprint is a fraction faster, that is a centimeter. It is the ultimate physical manifestation of the aggregation of marginal gains.
It reminds me of the core philosophy in James Clear's book Atomic Habits, but applied to a national sporting crisis.
That's a great comparison.
Instead of staring at the terrifying peak of the mountain, he is just looking at the placement of his next footstep. And that foundational consistency he built in 2025, that machine-like ability to churn out 80-plus meter throws week after week, regardless of the pressure that was the launch pad.
It was.
Because what happened next in the 2026 season wasn't just an improvement. It was an absolute explosion.
It was the climax of years of agonizing physical progression. It was the moment the entire global athletics community was violently forced to sit up and take notice.
Yeah.
Let's trace the early part of his 2026 campaign because it sets the stage perfectly for what was to come.
Let's do it.
So, he starts the year down in Australia at the Perth Track Classic, and he wins with a throw of 83.07 meters.
A solid opener to shake off the off-season rust.
Exactly. Then he comes home to Sri Lanka. He competes in the Champions Track and Field meet in Diagama, and he absolutely shatters the national record with a massive throw of 89.37 meters.
And just to be clear, at that specific moment in the season, that 89.37-meter throw was the world-leading mark, right? Nobody on Earth had thrown further in 2026 at that point.
Correct. It was a shot across the bow of the global throwing establishment.
Wow.
And he didn't stop there. He immediately travels to Nairobi, Kenya, and wins the Kipkeino Classic with an 89.28-meter throw, proving that the massive throw in Sri Lanka was absolutely not a fluke.
So he's backing it up.
Yeah. He then goes to the Rabat Diamond League in Morocco and takes second place with 85.97 meters. Then he strings together back-to-back victories at the Ostrava Golden Spike in the Czech Republic with 86.57 meters and the Doha Diamond League in Qatar with 88.68 meters.
I want to point out the logistics of what you just described. Australia, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Morocco, Czech Republic, Qatar. He is circumnavigating the globe. Literally. He is constantly changing time zones, sleeping in different hotel beds, dealing with different food, facing vastly different climates and runway surfaces, and yet he is consistently operating at the absolute razor's edge of the sport.
It's exhausting just hearing it.
The travel fatigue alone would destroy an average athlete's block leg timing.
Which is exactly why the 2025 season was so vital. He had built a biomechanical floor that was impervious to jet lag.
Right.
But all of that traveling, all those mid to high 80-meter throws, as incredible as they were merely the prologue for what happened on June 4, 2026.
We're in Diamond League.
The Golden Gala Pietro Manea, held at the legendary Stadio Olimpico. This is the night that permanently cemented Rumesh Tharanga Pathirage's legacy in the sport.
Set the scene for us. What is the atmosphere like in Rome for a Diamond League meet?
The Stadio Olimpico is iconic. It is massive, historic, and it has a runway that throwers generally love. It's fast and provides excellent grip.
Okay.
But the field assembled that night was an absolute gauntlet. It was a who's who of global javelin. You have Anderson Peters from Grenada, a two-time world champion who knows exactly how to peak for big meets.
Right.
You have Curtis Thompson from the United States, a world bronze medalist with immense explosive power. The pressure is palpable.
So the competition begins. Walk us through his performance.
Rumesh steps up for his first attempt of the night. He hits the runway, executes a clean throw, and hits 84.49 meters.
Okay, that's solid.
Now, in the context of an elite meet, that is a phenomenal opener. It safely secures your spot in the later rounds, it settles the central nervous system, and it puts immediate pressure on the rest of the field to respond.
Right, you get on the board early.
In fact, looking at the final results, that 84.49-meter throw alone would have been enough to win the entire competition that night.
Oh, wow. But he obviously wasn't going to just pack up his bag and go home after the first round.
Far from it. He comes back for a second attempt, charges down the runway, hits the block leg with that perfect car crash deceleration we talked about earlier, and he launches the Javelin.
Yeah.
It flies 92.62 meters.
Okay, we need to completely stop and dissect that number. 92.62 meters.
It's just unbelievable.
Because to a casual listener, numbers can just blend together. To put this into a visceral perspective for you, throwing an object 92.62 meters is like standing at the goal line of an American football field and throwing a spear so far that it doesn't just cross the opposite goal line, it sails through the air and lands deep in the back of the opposite end zone.
Yep.
It is nearly the entire length of a professional football stadium.
Yep.
And he didn't do this in an empty practice field. He did it against the reigning titans of the sport.
The sheer physics of a 92-meter throw are mind-bending. I mean, a javelin isn't just a heavy stick that you throw as hard as you can. It is a highly engineered aerodynamic implement.
Right.
It has a specific center of gravity and a specific center of pressure. You don't just throw it, you have to fly it.
Explain that. What do you mean you have to fly it?
So, if you throw a baseball, you are mostly just dealing with gravity and velocity. But a javelin has a massive surface area relative to its weight. It acts like an airplane wing.
Oh, I see.
If you release the javelin and the tip is pitched just 2 or 3 degrees too high, the air catches the belly of the spear, creating drag, and it stalls out in midair and drops like a stone.
Okay, yeah.
If the tip is pitched 2 degrees too low, it nosedives into the turf at 75 meters. To hit 92.62 meters, Rumesh had to impart maximum rotational velocity while releasing the implement at the absolutely perfect aerodynamic angle of attack so that it rode the air currents like a glider.
So it requires the power of a weightlifter and the precision of a surgeon.
Exactly that.
And the contextual weight of that specific throw in Rome is staggering when you look at the history books.
Staggering is the right word. First of all, it completely shattered a 20-year-old meeting record at the Golden Gala. Yes, the previous record was 90.34 meters. It was set way back in 2006 by the legendary Norwegian thrower Andreas Thorkildsen. For 2 entire decades, generations of the greatest throwers on Earth had come to Rome, and nobody had been able to touch that mark.
And Rumesh just destroyed it.
He didn't just break it, he demolished it by over 2 meters.
And it instantly changed the landscape of the 2026 season.
Yes, it immediately became the world-leading mark for the year. It was the best throw anyone on the planet had produced since the Paris Olympic final.
But I want to talk about where this puts him historically. Not just in 2026, but in the history of the human race.
That is where this story transcends standard sports reporting. A throw of 92.62 meters made Rumesh Tharanga Pathirage the 8th best thrower in the history of human civilization.
Wow. Let that sink in for a moment.
Right. Out of all the billions of people who have ever lived, and out of all the thousands of elite athletes who have dedicated their lives to this exact discipline, only 7 men have ever thrown a javelin further than Rumesh did on that night in Rome.
It's almost impossible to comprehend.
And in the specific context of Asian athletics, it ranks as the 2nd best throw in the history of the continent.
Who's first?
It's sitting just 35 centimeters shy of the massive 92.97-meter Asian record set by Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem.
Ah, right. It is the ultimate benchmark. The 90-meter club in javelin throwing is like the sub-10-second club in the 100-meter dash, but I would argue it is even more exclusive.
It really is.
When you cross 90 meters, you aren't just a competitor anymore. You enter a different stratosphere. You join names like Jan Zelezny, Johannes Vetter, and Thomas Roller. You become a deity of the sport.
Absolutely.
And there is always but in elite sports, as we know, a massive throw in one single Diamond League meet is just a number on a piece of paper if you can't back it up.
True.
The true test of a champion, the thing that separates the absolute all-time greats from the one-hit wonders, is the ability to win hardware when the pressure is at its absolute highest on the global championship stage.
Exactly. Setting meeting records in June is fantastic, but winning championships in August is what puts your name in the history books forever.
Yeah.
And Rumesh proved in 2026 that he was capable of doing both. Later in the summer, the focus shifted to Glasgow, Scotland for the Commonwealth Games.
And the stage of the Commonwealth Games is fundamentally different than a Diamond League meet, right?
Completely different. A Diamond League meet is an incredible spectacle, but ultimately you're chasing points, prize money, and personal bests.
Okay.
The Commonwealth Games is a major international championship. You are wearing your national colors, you are living in an athlete's village. The media scrutiny is intense, and you are competing for medals that your country will tally and remember for decades.
And the field waiting for him in Glasgow was absolutely brutal.
It was a gauntlet. He was matching up against Neeraj Chopra, the Indian superstar.
Right.
Chopra is not just an Olympic champion. He is the man who essentially birthed the modern throwing revolution in South Asia. He knows how to win championships better than almost anyone.
So the pressure is on.
Rumesh was also facing Yashvir Singh, another incredible Indian talent, and Anderson Peters from Grenada, looking for revenge after Rome.
Walk us through what happened in Glasgow. How did Rumesh handle the championship pressure?
He handled it by completely dismantling the field. Rumesh won the gold medal with a massive throw of 89.75 meters.
That's a huge throw for a final.
To put that in perspective, Neeraj Chopra took the silver medal with a throw of 85.83 meters, and Yashvir Singh took the bronze with 85.41 meters. Rumesh beat the reigning Olympic champion by nearly 4 full meters in a major final.
Winning by 4 meters in javelin is a blowout. That is sheer dominance.
It really is.
But for me, the historical context of this specific medal for Sri Lanka is what really gives the story its emotional weight.
Oh, without a doubt. If we connect this victory to the bigger picture, the magnitude of this gold medal for Sri Lanka cannot be overstated. This was Sri Lanka's very first athletics gold medal at the Commonwealth Games since 1950.
1950, that is staggering.
Yes, 76 years ago.
Wow.
Back in 1950, a man named Duncan White won gold in the 440 yards hurdles. For over 7.5 decades since that moment, generations of talented Sri Lankan athletes have gone to the Commonwealth Games, carrying the hopes of their nation, and none of them had been able to stand on the very top step of the podium in track and field.
Until Rumesh.
Right. He didn't just win a gold medal, he ended a 76-year drought. He exercised a national sporting ghost that had been haunting the country for lifetimes.
And what I find so impressive is that he didn't let off the gas after Glasgow.
No, he didn't.
You would think after breaking his 76-year national drought and winning Commonwealth gold, an athlete might experience a massive emotional letdown. They might take a break, go home, celebrate. But the Diamond League circuit continued, and Rumesh stayed right in the fire.
He absolutely stayed in the fire, and the drama of the season only heightened. Shortly after the high of the Commonwealth Games, the circuit moved to the Lausanne Diamond League in Switzerland. And this meet is crucial to understanding Rumesh because we saw a completely different side of his competitive makeup. Glasgow was a blowout. Rome was a record-breaking spectacle, but Lausanne was an absolute dogfight in the trenches.
Set the stage for Lausanne. What happened?
It was a tense, tightly contested battle, specifically between Rumesh and Neeraj Chopra, who was clearly looking to bounce back after the defeat in Glasgow.
Right, Chopra wasn't going to just roll over.
No way. Rumesh eventually won the meet with a throw of 88.14 meters. But he only narrowly edged out Chopra, who threw a season best of 88.05 meters.
Wait, 88.14 versus 88.05. Let me do the math. He won by 9 centimeters.
Yeah.
9 centimeters is the length of my index finger.
Exactly. It's a microscopic margin at that scale.
I have to ask, what does a 9-centimeter victory actually mean? Because when you are launching a spear almost 100 yards through the air, 9 centimeters feels like it could just be a rounding error. Is a victory that close on purely a test of mental fortitude, or is there something else at play?
Actually, winning by 9 centimeters isn't just about mental fortitude. It highlights the incredibly chaotic, uncontrollable nature of outdoor track and field.
What do you mean?
When margins are that tight, you are dealing with microclimates. A setting gust of wind, a slight drop in humidity affecting the grip on the cord of the javelin, or a temperature shift that changes the density of the air can easily give or take 50 centimeters on a throw.
So it's as much about battling the elements as it is battling your opponent.
Yes. If Chopra releases his javelin at a 28-degree angle and hits a slight headwind, and Rumesh releases at a 29-degree angle and catches a momentary pocket of dead air, that is your 9 centimeters right there.
That is wild.
But what that tiny margin proves is that Rumesh is a tactician. He isn't just a guy with a big arm who gets lucky. If Chopra throws 88 meters and puts the pressure on, Rumesh knows exactly how to dig deep, adjust his mechanics, time the wind, and find 88 meters plus a tiny bit more It is elite match play.
And his consistency across this entire grueling season has rewarded him handsomely in the overall standings.
It has. As a result of these continuous victories, he currently leads the 2026 Diamond League standings with 31 points, sitting ahead of Anderson Peters, who has 28 points.
That's huge.
Yeah, this means he has pre-booked his ticket to the highly exclusive Diamond League final in Brussels. On top of that, his performances have pushed him to number 2 in the overall world rankings, with 1,354 points, sitting just a fraction behind Germany's Julian Weber.
Wow.
Though, as we noted earlier, regardless of the points, Rumesh's 92.62-meter throw remains the absolute undisputed world lead for distance this year.
This represents a complete seismic shift in the power dynamics of global athletics. Historically, when we talk about South Asian track and field, the conversation has been heavily, almost exclusively, dominated by India, especially recently with Chopra and occasionally Pakistan with Arshad Nadeem.
Right.
But now Sri Lanka has a genuine, undeniable superstar who is actively defeating Olympic champions or breaking historic droughts.
It is a complete disruption of the geographic expectations in the throwing events.
But this raises a really practical, unavoidable question. How does a country without a massive, well-funded, deeply entrenched, traditional track and field infrastructure produce a global superstar?
It's a great question.
Because you don't just find a javelin in a closet, walk out to a patch of grass, and suddenly throw 92 meters. The reality of global sports is that elite talent dies on the vine without elite support.
That is the harsh, unspoken reality of the Olympic sports world. Raw talent is distributed equally around the globe, but the opportunity to refine that talent is not.
Right.
Building an athlete who can lead the Diamond League standings requires an entire ecosystem of success. It takes a village. And in Rumesh's case, it took a lot of unprecedented, cross-disciplinary, and international support.
Where did that ecosystem start? Because the transition from teenage cricket bowler to global javelin threat requires backing from day one.
In the early days, crucial foundational support came from the Sri Lanka Air Force. Yeah, they provided the initial backing and structure when he was still developing his basic throwing mechanics. But as his talent rapidly outgrew the local infrastructure, a major logistical pivot was required.
Makes sense.
To compete against the Europeans and the Americans, he needed access to the same technology they had. So a significant portion of his training was relocated to the Queensland Institute of Sport in Australia.
That is a massive move, relocating to a different hemisphere just to train.
It is a massive life change, but it was absolutely essential. Moving to Queensland gave him access to world-class facilities. Crucially, it allowed him to begin working with elite coaches Mike and Kelsey Barber.
What exactly does an elite coaching setup in Australia offer that he couldn't get back home?
It offers the invisible scaffolding that supports a 92-meter throw. At that level, coaching isn't just about yelling encouragement. It involves advanced biomechanical analysis.
Like what?
They use force plates embedded in the runway to measure exactly how much energy his block leg is absorbing and returning. They use high-speed, multi-angle camera rendering to check if his elbow is dropping a fraction of an inch during the crossover strides.
Wow, so it's super technical.
Insanely technical. They provide specialized, periodized sports nutrition and access to high-level physiotherapy to keep his shoulder joint intact.
But all of that technology, the travel, the coaching fees that cost tremendous amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
And track and field, outside the absolute top tier of sprinters, isn't exactly the most lucrative sport in the world, especially for a developing athlete from a developing nation. How on earth was this funded?
This is where the story takes a beautifully, uniquely Sri Lankan turn, and it brings us right back to where we started.
Okay.
He received a massive 10 million rupee grant from Sri Lanka Cricket.
Okay, stop right there, because I want to make sure the listener understands the gravity of that statement.
It's wild, right?
The cricket board, in a country where, as we established, cricket is the undisputed cultural king, giving a massive 10 million rupee grant to a track and field athlete. That is wild.
It really is.
That is like the NFL deciding to take a chunk of their revenue to fully fund the training of a U.S. figure skater.
It just doesn't happen in modern sports governance. Governing bodies fiercely protect their own capital and their own athletes.
It is incredibly rare, and it shows how undeniably transcendent Rumesh's talent is. The cricket establishment essentially recognized that this kid, who used to bowl for them, had a chance to do something for the nation that transcended the boundaries of any single sport.
Ow.
It was a highly symbolic moment. It acknowledged that Rumesh was no longer just an athletics prospect. He was a national asset that required protecting.
That is an amazing gesture of national unity over sporting tribalism.
It was vital. Furthermore, he secured commercial sponsorship from LOLC Finance, which helps cover the day-to-day costs of being a professional athlete. But perhaps the most vital, long-term piece of the financial puzzle came into place in September 2025. What happened in September 2025?
He was awarded the highly prestigious IOC Olympic Solidarity Scholarship.
What exactly does that entail?
The Olympic Solidarity Program is designed specifically by the IOC to support elite athletes in developing nations. It ensures they have the financial security to meet the grueling demands of high-performance training without the crippling daily stress of worrying about financial survival.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah, this scholarship, which was facilitated by the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka and Olympic Solidarity, is funding him all the way through to the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Games.
That is massive. That changes everything. It means that for the next 2 years, he doesn't have to worry about how to pay for a flight to a Diamond League meet in Europe or how to afford his coaching and facility fees in Australia.
Exactly.
He doesn't have to stress about paying for a hotel. He can just focus on the spear. He can just focus on the next centimeter.
Exactly. Elite athletes operate on incredibly fine physiological margins. If you are stressed about paying rent, or if you can't afford the right physio treatment after a heavy lifting session, your central nervous system does not recover optimally.
Right, the stress just eats away at your performance.
Cortisol levels rise. Your sleep suffers. And when your sleep suffers, your block leg timing gets a little sloppy. A sloppy block leg means you lose 2 meters off your throw and suddenly you are off the podium.
Wow.
The IOC scholarship, combined with the corporate sponsorship and the unprecedented cricket board funding, removed the financial friction from his development. It allowed him to just be an athlete.
So pulling all of these threads together, we have witnessed one of the most remarkable athletic ascensions of the decade. We are looking at a kid who was hurling leather cricket balls at 134 kilometers per hour just a few years ago. Now, he is a card-carrying member of the ultra-exclusive 92-meter club. He is a Commonwealth Games gold medalist who broke a 76-year national drought. He is a Diamond League points leader who went head-to-head with the Olympic champion and won. And he's the man who currently holds the longest javelin throw in the world for 2026.
It is a phenomenal resume, and it is a testament to the fact that greatness often lies adjacent to our current pursuits. Rumesh was a very good fast bowler, but he is a generational, historically significant javelin thrower.
Definitely.
And I think his core philosophy, that relentless, grounded focus on improving just 1 centimeter at a time, is so universally applicable.
He really is. Whether you are listening to this right now and you are trying to build a business, write a book, learn a new language, or yes, throw a javelin, mastery is almost never about massive, overnight cinematic leaps.
No, it isn't. It is about the unglamorous discipline of relentlessly raising your baseline. It is about refusing to accept your current floor and understanding that micro-improvements compound over time into world-beating results. Centimeter by centimeter. Centimeter by centimeter. It is such a beautiful, grounded way to approach a sport that literally requires you to look up at the sky.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on.
Yes, because Rumesh's story raises a fundamentally important question, one that sports scientists, talent scouts, and national Olympic committees around the world should be debating right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
What happens when nations that are traditionally obsessed with a single sport like cricket in Sri Lanka, or perhaps soccer in Brazil, or basketball in the Philippines, start actively testing the biomechanical talents of their youth for entirely different global arenas?
Oh, that is a fascinating premise.
Right. Rumesh was discovered almost by chance by an observant coach who saw the mechanical engine beneath the cricket uniform. But how many world record holders are currently playing the wrong sport simply because it is the most popular, culturally validated one in their hometown?
Right, like how many potential Olympic weightlifting champions are currently playing offensive line in American high school football? Exactly. How many potential rowing gold medalists are currently playing mediocre volleyball? If a teenage cricket fast bowler can become a 92-meter javelin thrower with the right pivot, the right coaching, and the right funding, the global pool of untapped talent in specialized track and field events is practically infinite.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we said at the very beginning of this conversation, we like human performance to be like architecture visible, categorized, linear. We expect to see the blueprint. But Rumesh Tharanga Pathirage proves that sometimes the greatest potential is completely hidden. It is masked by the uniform of a different sport, just waiting for someone to recognize the raw horsepower and hand them a different tool.
Well said.
It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking this incredible story for you today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for those centimeters in your own life, and we will see you next time.